Welcome to Deep Conversations Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Stewart, and I'm here with she's an author. She's a very, very dope creative poet, creative mind. Her name is Kim Seabrook. I want to talk about where you're from, and let's talk about your upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. We could definitely do that. So, yes, my name is Kim Seabrook, but I am also known as Kim GoodLook Seabrook, just
Gotcha.
so that you know. That's how you can find my name too on a lot of my poetry and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the Bronx, I'm a 70s baby. So
Yeah.
I've seen it all, the crack era, the hip hop era, and now the new millennium era, which I'm so glad that I was born in
Yeah,
1976.
man.
For
I say
But
that to myself. I'm like, man, I'm glad I do feel like I should have been brought up in your era. 70s, that's my music. I'm in the 80s. I'm early 80s, but
okay.
the 70s music, and that's my
Yeah.
my thing right there.
Well, I mean, I was born in the 70s, but 80s and 90s is,
Oh yeah.
but yeah. And then,
Mm-hmm.
of course, the old school, but you know how that go. Mom cooking and cleaning on Saturday and things like that. So yeah, got all of that good stuff in me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I mean, upbringing, we can talk about it. What more would you like for me to elaborate on? I mean, again, born and raised in the Bronx during a really hard time. That's when the crack epidemic came out.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about, you know, my mother, who's thankfully clean now, but my mother and everybody else's mother in my building. It's not like it was just mine.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, it was something that was going on that was meant to destroy the families. And I'm kind of thankful for it because it changes who I am today as a person,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see any regrets. I don't have any like I'm not upset about whatever happened in the past and growing up during that time. And I think I'm thankful also because during that time is a lot different from now. Although I may have had issues in my personal family, I still had a community in the building and outside the building. You know what I mean? Like you got Miss Yvette and Martha and Anna who made sure that the kids were good if we weren't. So that's a big thing that's missing now is community and being able to tell somebody else's kids to stop doing that, without the other parent getting upset. No, please tell my son if you see him doing something, you make sure you let him know, and then you let me know after too. That's missing.
I feel like I feel like I had to tell. Family and everything else. I'm like, if I'm not around, if my kids are doing something that they ain't supposed to do, check them on it. You know what I mean? It's not about, I don't know. I don't, like you said, back then there was a lot more community. You know what I mean? Us, growing up, I had 3 other brothers and just everybody knew everybody.
Exactly.
Around the neighborhood. I remember, I'm gonna jump back into this. I'm gonna jump off a little bit, but I remember me getting in trouble in school. I got a beating in school by the teacher.
Right.
Now I get off the bus and I'm mad. So I'm walking home and I'm skipping rocks. I'm just thinking I'm not talking to nobody, but me skipping the rocks is hitting people's fence. So now I'm getting yelled at from people. And then when I get home, they done called down to my mom's house, and then that's the 3rd time I'm getting in trouble. I'm like,
exactly.
I hate it here, but it wasn't that. It was just, it all that taught you can't act up. You can't do what you
and it's taught respect. It's taught respect.
That right there, yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's what
I knew that I couldn't go into Mrs. Jones' class because she was not trying to hear it. And I could not act up in Mrs. Jones' class.
Yeah.
I may have been able to slide off in this other class, but I knew Miss Jones, she wasn't having it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's missing. It's missing.
Yeah. Now I want to jump into poetry. Now, poetry is such a, to me, we talked before, and it's such a deep. Poetry has such it's a deep understanding of words. So for for you, when did you find that freedom in writing?
So, well, first, hip hop is my inspiration for poetry.
Mm,
So that's what I say. Other poets are not my inspiration. It's hip hop.
mm-hmm.
So if you hear it, you can see, like, even my son was like, Mom, when you performed, I thought you was about to rap. So, you know,
Yeah.
but so spoken word poetry, so that's always been something that I've done as a kid. Even, and I'll get into how like really poetry started, but even back then I used to rewrite rap songs and put it into my own words and things like
Mm,
that. And, but when poetry really started for me was after an abusive relationship, and someone asked me to perform at their event. And again, I wasn't even performing, I wasn't doing anything. It was just
mm,
out of the blue. I was like, all right, bet. So I wrote this poem, and I wrote it about, getting over an abusive relationship. I talked about abortion. I talked about abuse. I talked about, things that I had went through, even me having my son, who's now 23.
mm-hmm.
And, but I talked about the end goes, I'm thankful for the pain, hurt, the tears, and the stress, because without it, I could not appreciate my happiness.
Mm.
So poetry was my therapy, and that's what I am doing now to this day. So, that was the first poem that I did on stage, which was very difficult to talk about abortions, very difficult to talk about, abuse, because people don't talk about that. Everything has to be a secret. Nobody wants to talk about you just having an abortion. Like, what? How dare you? Because you're going to have people who judge you. But
Mm-hmm.
then what I noticed is that I was telling a story that many women couldn't talk about. Then the men were like, wait a minute, who did what to you? What? Where he at? You know what I'm saying? So I had both of these people who understood and respected my story.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few who talked about it, but that's because they just are narrow-minded, and I didn't pay that any attention. I knew that there was a bigger purpose with this poetry, and that's the healing part of it. So not only did it heal myself, but to this day, I've helped heal many, many other people.
Mm-hmm. Now I wanna talk about that a little bit, because I feel like, and it kind of sucks to say this, but like you just talked about, I feel like it's so many women and men as well.
And men.
And men as well. But I feel like there's so many who are kind of ashamed of, domestic violence or, abusive relationship or something like that. What can you talk about a little bit about your thought process during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been through 2 domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
domestic, abusive relationships. So, and what it is that sometimes it's either you see your parents go through it and you think that that's a relationship that you need to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know the first relationship, it was like I left my mother's house, I left the parents' house, I thought I could do it. And I didn't want to feel ashamed. I didn't want to act like I couldn't handle whatever I was going through. So I would go through all of this abuse just to try to show and prove something. When in fact, I should have been open wish that I felt like I had somebody to be open with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Because although I love my mother to death, and we already had this conversation, we are over through whatever we've been through.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive her, you know what I mean? She's human, things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I mentioned this not too long ago, was that I was told to shut the F up quite often.
Mm.
So for me to be able to be who I am right now, just to have this conversation with you and be open about it, it's a good thing. You know what I mean? So it just depends on what your upbringing was. Some people are just embarrassed. It's hard to get out of because these guys are so manipulative, and they tell you all these things and forgive me, I'm sorry. Then you feel sorry for them, they may not have nobody else to go to also, so it's just like so many different things and layers when it comes to an abusive relationship. So it's hard to get out of. It's hard. You have to really have your final point and say, this is it. I know I deserve better. I cannot continue to go through this anymore. And you have to get out. But it's not easy.
And I know that's hard because I've had conversations with a lot of women, and again, men as well, who've been in, abusive relationships, and it's hard. They say it's hard to get out because you're getting you're getting mentally beat down at the same time, and it's they say your confidence is gone. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have a confidence. So I'm gonna ask you, why do you think it's so important for people to open up about these things?
Well, so you can get through it. I mean, you have to grow. You have to get through it. You have to understand what was it? Was it in your childhood? Was it in the teenage years? Was
Mm,
it, what was it that made you feel like you needed to be abused? You
mm,
have to find the root of it. You have to talk about it. And the main thing is that to know that you're not alone. Even though you could see a million commercials or whatever about whatever abuse, is different when you're open to somebody else and be like, wow, you went through that too. You know what I
mm.
mean? To have that open dialogue and to be able to be free. And it's just healing. It's so healing. And then you realize, like, okay, yeah, I'm bugging. I
Yeah.
need to do better for myself.
Mhm,
You understand? So,
mhm,
and and the men who abuse also, you don't know what they went through in their lives.
mhm,
So I don't have any animosity towards any man, anybody who has done any type of harm to me, you know what I mean? Physically, mentally, emotionally, I have none. I have moved on, and forgiveness is like the biggest thing that you can ever
mhm,
do to grow. And but yeah, talking about it is therapy, and you don't have to speak to a therapist. You can just talk to someone that you feel comfortable with,
mhm,
and they may not have to even have the best advice for you, but just for somebody to listen,
mhm.
or maybe to hear somebody else who went through the same things that you experience is super helpful and growing.
I think it was I think the one thing that kind of stood out to me or kind of shocked me as I was growing up, and I sometimes I think about it now. There's never been a woman that I've dated that hasn't said that they were abused,
Hmm.
and that was so like crazy to me. You know what I mean? Because especially now, you know me having a daughter and everything like that, and then it's just
Hmm.
like you said, it's the root of things where people's childhoods and things like that. I mean, it's strongholds or something that people don't. A lot of people don't understand. How did you find your voice after being abused and
Again, poetry. Once
mm,
I was able to let that out, once I let that information on stage, and I was able to be open about it without, not feeling embarrassed or
hmm
anything like that. And again, seeing the return responses from other people
hmm
was like, you told my story. That right there is just that. It's like I'm able to tell somebody
yeah,
else's story.
hmm
And that was it. Poetry is my therapy. That's what I
yeah.
always say.
Now, where did you the good the good look brand? Where did that come from? I want to talk about that.
So, I was hosting before, in Atlanta, Georgia. I was doing a couple of radio shows. This was years ago. And my guy, Guap Sullivan, shout out to Guap Sullivan. He produces for DITC. He's pretty dope guy. He was like, man, you just a good look. Kim Good Look Seabrook. And he gave me that name. And I know I got to pay him one day. I got to pay him for his name one day. Because this brand is serious. So shout out
Yeah.
to Guap. Yeah, he gave me that name years ago. This was maybe 2010. So yeah,
Hmm.
so like 12. Mhm.
Wow. That's and you talked about poetry helping you therapeutically.
Mhm.
What does for me, because again we were talking the other day, and I'm a huge reader. It's funny, it's when I was growing up in school, I hated reading. I didn't feel like it was a purpose for it or anything like that. But as I got older, that's all I do is that's like a peaceful pastime for me, because it lets your mind take you places as you're reading. You know what I mean? So for you, explain the therapeutic part for you in poetry.
So, I mean, there's many pieces. One is just to just be open and let it out, right? Without not having any judgment against you. That's like the biggest part. And just writing alone, not even on your phone, not on your computer. Getting that pen and
And
paper
paper.
out is so different. I'm
Yeah.
serious. And you could be feeling one thing one day. I've had poems where like I wrote one part 1 month and another 3 months, like, and then, so like, but writing it on piece on a piece of paper is so different. And what was your question? I know I just got
Oh no, it's just
how is it therapeutic?
the therapeutic part.
Then what else? So I'll tell you what I did with my book. I could tell you that. So after each poem in my book, which is titled Memory Lane, there is a journal page with a question on it. So I encourage other people to write. I encourage other people to just let it out. So you can either talk about my experience, you could talk about your experience, or maybe somebody else you may have known who went through that same thing and it still affected you somehow. Write it out, let it out, because maybe you've been holding those things in for so long. You know what I mean? Just let it out. You're not the only one who went through that. How did your mom being a drug addict, how did that affect you? You may not have any drug issues, but your mom did. How did that affect you? How are you feeling now today about it? Do you judge other people who are on drugs? You know what I mean? Just let it out. Talk about it. Because then that way you can find your solution. There's a solution to everything. There is so much power in growing and learning from your behaviors and your patterns and changing them. Man, listen. So I writing is super, super important. And then not only that, get together with this book. This is what I'm saying. But even without the book, get together with a collective people that you trust and talk about it. You're like, wow, you went through that. But then maybe that person went through something that you went through, but you already processed it and healed from that. Maybe vice versa. You know what I mean? And then y'all can help each other. There's a community out here. It's still a community. You just have to find it. We are out here.
Yeah, and I feel like now, we were talking about earlier with this generation. I feel like social media and a lot of this internet stuff has taken people away from being able to communicate. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times people would rather text than just call on the phone.
Just pick up the phone.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And I think there's a trained thing that people do, and it's not it's almost like a fear. People would rather, I don't want to talk on the phone, or people can't express themselves. You know what I mean? I think I think diaries are really important. You know what I mean? It's
oh yeah.
I mean, that's like poetry too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can learn about yourself. You know what I mean? Some things that you may not even be thinking about, if you just sit there, pen on that paper, and just let it move.
Exactly.
You'll be surprised if some of that stuff comes out on that.
Exactly. And then you could go back and look at it and be like, wow, this is how I felt this day, but look at me today and look at your growth. You know what I mean? Also seeing your growth, and that is so dope.
And as you're reading it, you can actually literally feel your emotion in each of those days where you were, you know what I mean? What the workshops that you have before before COVID has started, what were some of the workshops you had?
Well, first I want to give a major shout out to Chip Fu of the Fushnikins. I'm not sure if you remember the Fushnikins, but yes. Okay. So he is my brother now, but started off as a huge mentor to me. So he allowed me, gave me the opportunity to teach poetry in his class, and which is called MAATH, MAATH, Music, Arts, Appreciation, something healing. Sorry, Chip, but you know. So yeah. And from that helped me to learn how to do my workshops as well. You know what I mean? Because that was the whole goal with my poetry. I'll give you a little background. So when I had got fired from my job, I was already doing great things with my poetry. I was living in Connecticut, but New York, everything was popping off. So I never went back to work for anybody else. I was like, okay, you fire me, but I sold 35 cars in my department. Okay, this is a blessing in disguise. I know what I got to do. There's more to it. It's politics. I ain't messing with y'all. Now I'm going to put my all into my passion. So I went 2 years homeless, because I did not go back to work for anybody. I hustled, I struggled, but I smiled through every single moment, you know. And shout out to my son. He super supportive. Although it was difficult for him at first, like, Mom, what you mean you ain't going to look for a job? What you mean? What you got to do? Yeah. So, but he was well taken care of. Thank you to, whoever helped me with that situation. But Yeah, man. Shout out to my son. And so from what I told my son and whoever, I said, what I'm gonna do is have workshops in my school. I said, I'm gonna hustle. I'm gonna be broke. Just bear with me. I got this. This have a 5-year plan, but I'm gonna do, with it sooner. So I did it before the 5 years. Was only for 2 years. Finally got into our own place back again, and got my workshops in schools right before COVID. And it was to help teenagers who were actually in the foster care system and also in the jail system as well. So that, oh my God, that was beautiful. I was so proud of myself, but I was so proud to be a part of those girls' lives because they needed it so much. It's so funny, like you would look at them from the first day, and some of them were like hard and like, yeah. And then compared to like a couple of weeks in, they like, yeah, this, and we right in and we do it,
Yep.
and I remember one girl specifically, she was like, you know what? I did not want to come downstairs, but then I realized it was you coming in and I had to come because I knew you was going to make my day better. I was like, okay. And she always hugged me. So that was beautiful. So yes, then COVID hit, and it was literally right before COVID. And I lost that. I lost, so many performances in person. And it was so hard to do this right here. This Zoom thing. I'm a people person. I'm a community person. I'm out there reaching and teaching. Like, I handle my business and then I'm out. But overall, like you would see me out there handling my business and being that person. You know what I mean? Like it is different. This is different.
Yeah. I think people with kids respond by feelings. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, you see a lot of this crime and a lot of these young kids shooting and all of this kind of stuff. What it is they're missing love. And the only thing that's going to come out of that when you don't have it is anger, frustration, just wanting attention. You know what I mean? Things like that. There's a Bible verse I think everybody knows. Evil communication corrupts good manner. But if you study that verse, that word communication also means sexual intercourse. So when you read it again, evil sex is going to corrupt your manner. And that changed so much for me as I was getting older, because men are always taught there's a weird dynamic, you know what I mean? As boys are growing up, you're taught, just it's okay, talk to this girl, talk to this girl, talk to this girl. That's what you're taught, you know what I mean, as a boy. And as a girl, you're told to be a lady and act like this and do this. So when they get together,
it's
there's two different dynamics,
exactly. I mean? No balance whatsoever.
Yeah, and they both think that they're right, and it's it's again, that's we're talking about communication and words, and it's just, I don't know. I find with these kids there's no sense of communication, because like you said, there's no community anywhere. So
exactly. Everything is social media. You see 70-year-olds on social media shaking their hips and all of this, and I'm like, yo, what?
I say the same. I'm like, what is going on? It's you get caught. You get caught scrolling. You know what I mean? It's just it's what it is. It's just you're caught scrolling, and the kids, like you said, with these workshops, these kids they're looking and they're bound for attention. They had the hard shell, and until they ran into you and they communicated with you, all of that broke down. And that's all it is just love that they miss it.
Exactly. So I also now have a workshop that I do poetry with some teens young adults and teens who have special needs as well. So I do that.
And you said you did that on Zoom, and you said that was.
Yeah, I'm still doing it on Zoom.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything I'm doing right now is still on Zoom. But I want the workshops that I'm going to create with my book to be in person.
I want to now you've had a lot of accomplishments. You've written for some magazines, you produce television and radio shows. So how did you find that lane?
Well, it started in Atlanta. When I lived in Atlanta in 2008, I moved out there. Yeah, I think 2007 I moved out there. So like about 2010, and that's when I started doing radio and a podcast called The Skinny Kravitz Show. Shout out to Skinny Kravitz.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I wrote for a magazine, which is called The Machine Network. And that led me to interviewing so many people. Doo-Wop, Chill Mitchell. If you know who Chill Mitchell is, he is now on NCIS. He's just amazing. But he was in House Party, in case you're not familiar. That's the one who bumps into the table. And he's also mentioned in my book because he gave me great motivation. He's in a wheelchair now, but the way that he has an outlook on life is been super amazing. So shout out to Chill Mitchell. Doo-Wop, and I'm saying this is from before, and DJ Scream. So I had a lot of back then, a lot of amazing interviews. That's where my career started. And then when I moved back to New York, I did it again. I started for another magazine, and I mean, I interviewed Eric Sermon, Capone from Capone and Noriega. I mean, really, the list really does go on, and my brain is like just a lot. I interviewed quite a few people. Yeah, shout out to Chip Fu. He allowed me to interview him, but again, that's my brother now. So, but so many people. Lord Finesse and Showbiz. So yeah, that's family too. I have a huge respect in the hip hop community that I give, and it's definitely been returned to me. So shout out to everybody who shows me love.
I want to before we talk about your let's talk about your album first, Poetry Soul.
My what?
Your album, Poetry Soul.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a Poetry Soul album, but it's called Memory Lane too.
Okay.
So Memory Lane is where it started from, and then I came out with the book Memory Lane. So it's everything that's on the album is not in the book, so it's like different. But I wanted to still continue with Memory Lane because I really wasn't 1,000% happy with the project. I love it. I'm thankful that I did it, but I did it in a rush thing because I was going to this huge event and I was like, I don't have books, I don't have this, but I need to make some money. Yeah. So shout out to my guy Lex Boogie in Atlanta. He's in Atlanta. He had beats. He put it together. I'm in New York, and honestly, some stuff was done on the phone. Like like the stuff that I recorded. So it's not like I want to totally redo it all over again. And I will, with really dope stuff behind it. But so Memory Lane, and then now I got the book Memory Lane, Reminisce with Me through Healing Poetry. So I just branched it off. Yeah,
so I want to jump into the music because I can tell from your from your spirit. I mean that you love music. You know, talk about some of your favorite hip hop artists.
Oh gosh.
A lot of them, right?
Yeah. That is super hard. I mean, shout out to Kwame. Kwame is a huge dope inspiration as people's as well. Interviewed him also. Kwame is dope. I'm an old school head, so you're gonna take it back. Eric Sermon, like I said, Big Daddy Kane, ain't no half stepping, you know what I'm saying?
And that's one person. Shout out to Big Daddy. That's one person I want to interview is Big Daddy Kane.
Me too. MC Light, Light as a rock, I should say a boulder, your neck pounding on your shoulder. Yes, that's God, I have to meet her one day. So
you're gonna have me
pulling out the old thing. I mean, there's just so many. Let's see, 90s hip hop. Of course, Biggie, Jay-Z, Tupac, you know what I mean? But like I said, I'm definitely an old school head. I'll be rocking old school all the time.
Yeah, because it's too, I asked you that because I mean music is, I mean it is poetry, you know what I mean? And you can always find out about somebody's personality by soundtrack of
Uh-huh.
the music that they listen to. You know what I mean? And like you said, you got the old soul. You got the '70s, and then you got the old school hip
Mhm.
all that. So it's this this interview for me was one again, like you said, you like to be open about a lot of stuff to help other people, but it's talking to you and speaking to you. I mean, there's a piece to you that's it's vibrant. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
It's a good feeling because it's you have you have a story, but it's such a positive and redemption story. You know what I mean? That I think, like I told you, that it's going to help a lot of people because you just everything that you said that happened, years ago is like it's like you free from it now. You can just feel it in your. And then as I was looking at your Instagram, I'm like, it's a. I'm trying to think of it. I've been trying to think of the music, but it's like a common like soundscape. You know what I mean? It's
That's
just
what's
real,
up.
just real vibrant. So,
Thank you.
where can they find you on social media?
So my IG is GoodLook Seabrook, and my Facebook is Kim Seabrook, and I do have TikTok. I'm just posting occasionally on there. GoodLook Seabrook. Everything is GoodLook Seabrook. You can find Kim GoodLook Seabrook. There's a lot of other interviews as well on there where you could, that also maybe I didn't say something here. But just to let people know, I've been through quite a lot. So we could talk about domestic abuse, sexual abuse as a young girl, even did drugs, and it's in my book, and I could talk about how I, got through that and, party. Oh yeah, I was partying for quite some time, but
Yeah.
yeah, them days it's way long over, and I'm just super thankful for this journey. And this is why it's so important to go through your past. This is why I had to do the book again, Core Memory Lane, because we tend to not talk about the past, and it's okay. Nobody's perfect. We all go through things. Don't worry about somebody judging you, because I guarantee you they probably did 10 times things worse than you did. You know what I mean? But they're afraid to talk about it. So don't be afraid to talk about it. Let it out. There's always somebody who went through something you went through or could definitely help and relate to get you through it.
And that's what I always say is life is just, it's a learning experience. You learn as you go from however long we here. I mean, you're going to make mistakes, and shouldn't nobody be ashamed of something that they went through. I mean, it's taught you who you are. And like you said in the beginning of the interview, there's always a teaching moment in everything that you do that you can learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You just have to go back to your past. You have to go back.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn if you don't be like, oh, wait, I did this then, and this was the outcome. You know what I mean? If you just continue to keep like, la, 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 la. No, like go back to that moment. Remember what happened. Remember how it made you feel. So fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miss Kim GoodLook Seabrook.
Yes.
I appreciate you for being on the podcast.
All right. Sounds good, Ryan. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
You're on YouTube, baby.